So Jibreel and Mikael will die. Then the Malakul Maut will come and he will say, oh Allah, I have taken Jibreel and Mikael. Allah will say, who is left? He will say, you are left, O Allah, and the carriers of your throne, and I am left. You see where this is heading? Okay? One by one. Everybody's gone until who's going to be left? Malakul Maut and Allah. Now pause here. How many of you have heard this in popular culture and khutab and durus? This is the evidence right here. Okay? As Ibn Kathir said, the hadith is well known. How many of you it has trickled down to such that it is the popular vernacular? Even last class somebody raised his hand and said, Shaykh, but isn't this going to happen? I said, where'd you get it from? And he didn't know. I said, this is where you got it from. This is where you get it from. No one will be left until Malakul Maut and Allah. And then Allah Azza wa Jal will say to the Malakul Maut, Anta khalqun min khalqi. You are a creation that I have created. And so I am telling you to die. And so Malakul Maut will die. And then no one will be left except Al-Wahid Al-Ahad Al-Samad. Laysa biwalidin wala walad. Kana akhiran kama kana awwalan. And there will be no one left. And then Allah will say with His voice and a loud voice, Limanil mulkul yawm. And then finding no one to respond, Allah Azza wa Jal will answer Himself, Lillahi al-Wahid al-Qahhar. And then the hadith goes on. And almost all of us have heard this portion of the hadith as well. Okay? Now, as we said, this hadith without a doubt is not authentic. No scholar has ever made it authentic. And from beginning to end, there are issues about it. But as Ibn Kathir said, there are phrases that are authentic in it. Now, therefore, in this hadith, there is an evidence that the angels will die. Correct? We just went over it. All the angels will die. These are the three evidences used that the angels will die. Number one, the generalities of the Quran. Number two, a very weak hadith. Number three, a very weak hadith. Is there any authentic evidence, therefore, that the angels will die? Clearly not. Has there been an alternative opinion? Yes, there has been an alternative opinion. And there have always been small groups of people that have challenged this. Of the earliest of them is At-Tabari in his tafsir, who mentions in more than one place that the angels will not die. And of them is the famous Andalusian scholar, one of the most ingenious and eccentric minds to ever come from Andalus, Ibn Hazm. And I have said many times before that Andalus produced a very different caliber of ulama. The ulama of Andalus are very different than the mainstream world, and the reason for this is obvious, and that is because Andalus was a mixing of cultures. Andalus, you had people of different backgrounds all coming together, and so the minds that come from there are very, very atypical. They're eccentric, they're genius, sometimes they're a little bit on the bizarre side, and they also have amazing contributions that the Ummah did not get from the East, from Baghdad, from Damascus. And this is something very interesting. And I say, insha'Allah ta'ala, this also shows that sometimes being outside of the center actually brings about a lot of good as well. Sometimes being in a place and a land, and you get where I'm heading from this, where there's an intermixing of cultures, where science is at a different level, it'll make you think differently, and it'll make you realize things outside the box that you don't see when you're inside the box. And Andalus is the classic example of this. Ibn Hazm wrote in his famous book, Al-Fisal fil Milali wal Ahwa'i wal Nihal, which is a 5-volume book about all of the groups of Islam ever, from the time of the Prophet ﷺ up until his time. 400 years of Islamic history and theology, all of the different firaq, he has them there. And he mentions, and all of the different opinions, and he mentions about the death of the angels, what the people have said. And he says in that book, volume 4, page 21, there is no explicit evidence, nor is there ijma' that the angels will die. If there was an evidence, I would have said this. But there's no dalil or burhan that causes us to believe that they will die. And that is actually against common. It doesn't make sense they will die. Ibn Hazm is saying. It doesn't make sense. Because Jannah is a place where there is no death. And the angels, we know, will be in Jannah. And they were created in Jannah. And they shall live in Jannah. The same, he says, for the Hurun Ain. Why would the Hurun Ain die? And Maut, he says, death is the separation of the body from the soul. Meaning the angels don't have a body and a soul. How will death happen? And our Prophet ﷺ explicitly said the angels have been created from light. So what will be be exiting what? When the angels are not body and soul. End quote of Ibn Hazm. So Ibn Hazm is saying, who said angels die? And notice another great scholar says there's ijma' that angels die. Just because a scholar said something doesn't mean anything and everything. The researcher, the academic needs to go deeper than this. And we have as well a very interesting point by an early scholar of tafsir, Al-Wahidi, who died in the 4th century of the Hijrah. Al-Wahidi, he wrote a book on tafsir and on asbab al-nuzul, and even though he didn't explicitly talk about the trumpet and the angels, he does mention the angels will live forever. And he derives this from a verse in the Quran. Very interesting. I found this very interesting. Al-Wahidi says that when Iblis came to Adam and tempted Adam to eat of the tree, what did Iblis say to Adam? إِلَّا أَن تَكُونَ مَلَكَيْنِ أَوْ تَكُونَ مِنَ الْخَالِدِينَ. The reason why Allah told you to not eat of this tree is that if you eat, you will become angels, or you will become those who live forever. Al-Wahidi says, because angels live forever and do not die. Okay? So there's an interesting derivation that Adam knew. Adam knew that angels don't die. If the angels died, what would be the temptation to eat of the tree? I found this very interesting dalil that he's saying the angels do not die. And some ulama have also said that the angels do not die based upon the hadith in Bukhari and Muslim, muttafaq alayh, Bukhari and Muslim, that the Prophet ﷺ would make dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The famous hadith, أعوذ بعزتك الذي لا إله إلا أنت الذي لا يموت والجن والإنس يموتون. I seek refuge in you and in your glory, O Allah. You are the one who is La ilaha illa ant. You are the one who does not die, and the jinn and the ins die. Now, what is the evidence from this hadith? He did not say malaika. He did not say malaika. He said the jinn and the ins die. And this type of extraction, you should learn this, bit of an advanced usul al-fiqh. It is called mafhum al-mukhalafa. It is the derivation based upon the opposite implication. The fact that the angels are not mentioned, this is the mafhum, it's not the mantuq. He did not say the angels do not die. He was quiet, and he could have, maybe even he should have, if the angels are going to die. He said the ins and the jinn die, and he didn't say anything else. But you see, when you're going to mention this, you